Hi, it's Norman Kochnick here. Yet again, a fantastic day of play. Day 3 of the Border Gavaskar Trophy, 4th test between India and Australia has been a fantastic virtual blockbuster. With Australia certainly bowling well, with the likes of Hazelwood getting a fiver and Cummins bowling particularly well. But more important or more dramatic than that was the Indian strength of batting, the character of their batting, the steel in the batting. And I'm not talking about just the likes of Pujara and Rahane. I'm in fact talking about the two new players to the team, one a debutant and the other one a virtual debutant. Shardul scored 67 in a partnership with Washington Sundar, who got 62. The partnership was actually 123, which is the biggest 7th wicket partnership since the likes of Kapil Dev and Prabhakaran back in 1991-92. So that is a significant example of how incredible that performance was. These two bowlers, and they are all-rounders, but they're primarily, I would imagine, bowlers, and they actually both took 3 wickets each with Natarajan in the first innings. And this time around, they both scored 60s. In fact, they were top and second top score, were 67 and 62 respectively, with the biggest partnership of 123. And India ended up getting a total of 336, which was some 33 runs behind the Australian total, which is quite a magnificent effort, with Australia ending the day on none for 21, giving them a 54-run lead, which I would call virtually an equal playing field, with Australia and India now locked in the tight battle for the last 2 days of play. There wasn't a drop of rain today. The sun was out all day. There wasn't a ball lost. In fact, we're virtually caught up to the overs we've lost. We're only a few overs behind, but we're starting again tomorrow morning, some half an hour early. So effectively, the weather gods were certainly not right today. There was no weather, no rain at all. It was a little bit yesterday, which did end the day's play, but day 4 and day 5 does have both 60% chance of rain on day 4 and 80% chance of rain on day 5, which is between 8 millimetres tomorrow and potentially 15 millimetres tomorrow, so the day after. So in fact, that's a possibility that may take away some time, but this game will probably get a result, and I would say it looks like the percentages are there for a draw, but you never know. India could easily bowl well in the morning and take some substantial wickets. Let's just go through the actual day's play. So now, India was actually 2 for 62 overnight, with Rahane on 23 and Pujara. The fact is that Pujara didn't stay as long as he would like to. They batted a bit longer, some 40-odd runs. Pujara did look pretty good. Rahane looked like they were in for a relatively long stay, but Pujara was caught payne, bowled Hazelwood for 25 off some 94 deliveries. And India were 3 for 105 then after 38.5 overs. So it was a reasonable start. Unfortunately, then a short while later, Rahane was actually caught by Wade off Starc. After having given a few balls through the same region, they then placed a fieldsman in that position, that is Wade, in about the 4th, 5th slip position. And Wade actually took a catch there off the bowling of Starc, where Rahane was caught. Wade bowled Starc for 37. The score then was 4 for 144 after some 54, 55 overs. Agarwal was not out 25, and he was looking particularly good. He was joined then by punts. And at lunch, or just before lunch actually, no, it was just on lunch, they were 4 for 161 after some 60 overs, scoring 99 in the longer first session, with Agarwal on 38 and Punt on 4. So that particular point, again, rather even kill. Agarwal looked particularly good actually, and Punt was, as he always is, looking strong as well. They returned after lunch. Unfortunately, the second ball after lunch, Agarwal fished to the ball, which was nowhere near to drive, and was caught by Smith off the bowling of Hazelwood for 38, so it didn't actually add to his lunchtime score. Then the situation was 5 for 161 after 60.2 overs. India were rather on the back foot a little bit there after having lost that wicket, because Agarwal and Punt certainly looked the goods, and to me, they were looking good. Punt then was joined by Sundar. Now this is where things started to really happen. Punt again looked particularly strong and was playing his shots as he would normally do, but also Washington Sundar was equally as strong in his batting as well. So they had a reasonable partnership. Unfortunately, Punt got a rather tough ball that went up close to him. As opposed to hitting it over the slips, he actually hit it down and hit it straight to the hands of Green, again off Hazelwood for 23, and that was the 79th over. So there was 6 for 186. Again, you would argue probably not looking at their best, looking rather they were going to struggle to get anywhere near the Australian score. But that saw Washington Sundar and Shardul joined together, and that led to an amazing partnership. One of the legendary partnerships, I'm sure, in cricket terms. The fact is that India put on for the 7th wicket 123, And the class of Washington Sundar's shots were amazing, and Shardul was hitting the ball beautifully as well, and they put on a very, very strong partnership. Unfortunately, it came to an end, but that was well after tea. In fact, at tea, they actually were 6 for 253. So that virtually most of that session, they only lost the 1 wicket, and that was 6 for 253, which at tea was a particularly good recovery, looking like they were heading in the right direction. At that point, it was a 67-run partnership. Then Shardul and Washington didn't stop there. They ended up going both past their 50s at virtually the same time, and the partnership was a surprise sensation. I actually did predict that these blokes would do well, but I didn't think they'd do this well. They've done fantastically well. Unfortunately, then Shardul got a ball from Cummins, it was a particularly good ball, and he got bowled, and they were then 7 for 309. So that effectively meant a 123-run partnership. But at 7 for 309, that was only 60 runs behind the Australian total, and that was a fantastic recovery from a situation where they could have been a lot worse off. So at 7 for 309, Saini, the bowler, who was actually not meant to bat, came out to bat. He was batting in the nets apparently early in the day. He was even throwing some balls down, which may suggest he might bowl, but I doubt it. But he certainly did bat. And then you'd have to look, a lot of fortune actually went Saini's way. He was playing some rather awkward shots, and several of the balls didn't go to hand. And you could see the day actually, and I'll do compare this, the day in Adelaide when everything went Australia's way and Australia were all out, got India all out for 36. Every single catch, every single nick was caught, everything went perfectly. All, you would argue, Australia's way. Well, you'd argue today in Brisbane, it was more of a day where India had things go their way. There were several balls that went away from the field, like Rahane hit the ball through his lips, but didn't get caught. There were several balls that went away from the field. Even Saini was struggling, but he wasn't caught. He had a 4 over the top of the slips based on a ball that probably could have went to hand. And there were occasions where Washington also had that situation. Anyway, Sundar was on 60. Unfortunately, at that point, Saini had one too many good balls. He nicked it to Smith off Hazelwood, who had a fantastic day, ended up getting 5, and that left Saini out for 5, and that left the squad 8 for 320 after 107.4 overs. So effectively, India batted almost as long as Australia did. At that point, Australia had batted their innings around 115 overs, India 107. But they still had 2 wickets to go. So they did particularly well. They lasted as many overs as Australia, and with a great deal of confidence as well. And they were going in about approximately 3 and over as well, which was a reasonably steady rate. And you could thank Shardul and Washington for that. They had some magnificent strokes. In fact, Alan Border made the comment, did India reverse the batting order today? Because it looked like the lower the order that went, the better the batters were. It was quite a remarkable situation. Unfortunately, at that point, when Siraj came into bat, it left a situation where Sundar actually only got a couple of extra runs, and then he was caught by Green off bowling a Starc. Yet again, another good catch, and that led to the score being 9 for 328. That was at 108 overs, so about an over or so later. That left Siraj and Natarajan together, and Natarajan looked like he was struggling. But Siraj took charge. He said, "Right, I'm going to make sure I got a few runs." Did some magnificent 4s. So I've rather compromising type of improvising batting stances, but he got 1 over slips, which almost went for 6. He ended up getting 13 before he was bowled by Hazelwood, a good ball that Hazelwood put on the stumps and got Siraj for 13. And that stage, Natarajan was on 1, and India finished at 10 as an all-out, but 336. And that was in the 111th over. So effectively, only 3-4 overs less than Australia. That was particularly good. So they're on level playing field, really. They're both of them. That left Australia some 33 runs in front and gave Australia some mere 6 overs to bat. And Warner went for a very early run and actually stretched and died. Then I believe he's re-injured himself. His groin. He looked in pain and he wasn't letting on, but he was certainly restricted from that point onwards. He may have some problems with Warner tomorrow with his batting in terms of his groin injury, which certainly is not 100% into the test. And yet again, 1 quick run and he seemed to have done it again. He was grimacing for pain quite a bit. But he did score 20 runs in the partnership of 21. Harris only got the 1 run, and they were none for 21. That leaves Australia some 54 runs ahead on day 3. Even playing field, Australia through Tim Payne and the like, with the coach Justin Langer, were trying to work out exactly how many runs they need to get on the 4th day to give them some chance of getting into bat. But they're going to need to give India a lot of time to bat because the strength of the character of the players. Last test, it was, of course, as we know, Ashwin with Vihari. This time it could be Thakur and Sundar yet again. So great effort. Australia deserved their bowling, but India deserved every accolade for their batting. Hazelwood got 5 wickets, but the 260s from those two young gentlemen, it was magnificent. This is Norman Koshnik here, looking forward to day 4.